Welcome to the Momnesia Podcast, a podcast for moms where we share the stories we want to remember and the ones we wish we could forget. We're your hosts, Julie Short and Sarah McLaughlin.
Julie.
Hey, Waldo. I mean, Sarah. Those new glasses, girl.
I know, my head almost fell over. They're so big.
I love them. I would not have called you Waldo had you not called yourself Waldo. I think they are very glamorous.
I know.
Very library chic.
That's what I said. They're supposed to be geek chic. Are they chic or are they just geek? So thank you.
Yeah. Before we get started on our catch-up, we need to read some of our Apple Podcast reviews.
Yay!
You guys totally come through for us, and we are so grateful. We love it when you go and give us a 5-star rating as well as drop a review because that helps new listeners find us.
Yep.
And we are so grateful for this one from Heart Out Mama. She came through in the clutch here. Says, this podcast reminds me that I am not the only mother who is doing their best, which sometimes ends up being our worst. But our failures today don't dictate our future tomorrow. Thanks, Momnesia, for being brave with the messiness of life, for creating some space for others to share, and for encouraging us to give grace to ourselves. I mean,
I love that.
Heart Out Mama, you totally captured what we're trying to do. Thank you so much. We're so glad that that's coming through.
Yeah, that's something, Julie, you say a lot to our guests. Like, it's so important to remember that we're not alone. We're not the only one. And even the last couple, I think we've talked specifically about that, like how powerful the phrase "me too" is. So the fact that she hit on that, like, I'm not the only one, like, oh, that is our why. So I love that. And the messiness, we're trying to keep it real, y'all.
Yeah.
Like laughing and crying and everything in between. So thank you. Yeah. That's awesome.
Thank you so much, Heart Out Mama. We really appreciate it. I'm also coming through with like, I already know what I want to talk about in the catch up. Do you care if I take the lead?
Hey, take the lead.
Okay. So I was on a podcast recently. This is my first one without
congratulations.
you. I was so nervous. And it is called Good Girl Gone Boss.
Yes.
And it is a podcast that highlights women who live and work in Delaware County, which is where Ball State is housed. That's how I got to be on this show. And they just kind of highlight the cool work that's being done to serve the community.
Awesome.
So love it. Thank you so much, Angie and Matt, for having me on. One of the questions that they asked was, what's your bucket list? Or what's on your bucket list, I guess.
Okay.
And I was like a deer in the headlights.
Okay.
I was like, I don't know.
Right.
I guess I don't have a bucket list. So shout out to Matt for the great editing that he did because I just went right into some things, but I definitely had to sit and talk through it. And one of the things I realized as an Enneagram 8, maybe I don't have a bucket list because if I want to do something, I just do it.
Okay.
That was the only logical explanation I could come up with. But do you have a bucket list?
Well, I mean, we can come back to this in a second after you tell me a little bit about like what you came up with. But recently a group of friends, and maybe this is a 4 thing, like you want to do it your own unique way and you don't want to like have a normal answer. When people talked about the bucket list, I think I easily could be the type of person that would be like, I don't know. I mean, a bucket list, let's come up with a slight variation on that. And I would maybe critique it. But the group I was with was doing that. And so then I wanted to be like, well, hey, hang on. I'm going to now root for the bucket list. So I have thought about it. I do have some
Sarah.
ideas.
You're so special.
But like, did you come up with some
I did.
some ideas, and have you been thinking about it since?
Well, I have been thinking about it, and I now have a note on my iPhone to keep track of these things.
Okay.
So the first one that I want to do is I want to ride the Hogwarts train and visit Hogwarts in England.
Oh,
so,
cool. Okay.
You know, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan.
Yes.
And I just saw my friend from Food for the Hungry, Andrew Crawford. Hey, Andrew. He and his family were in England and they rode the train. I didn't even know that that's
cool.
something you could do.
You know, I've never seen or read Harry Potter, so I don't even know what you're talking about.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I guess I should put it on my bucket list.
You do. You need to put it on there. I have let you down by not forcing you to do that already. But I don't know. Harry Potter, the whole world has such a special place in my heart. So that is something I think I would definitely like to do. The other thing I want to do, I've done lots of traveling already. And that's kind of the question. They're like, well, don't you want to travel? And I'm like, well, I've traveled a lot already. But the one place I haven't been, I feel like I'm going to tap into some of my millennial friends here. I want to go to Iceland and like go to one of those hot springs.
Oh, yes.
Doesn't that sound cool?
Yes. Now, I have done that. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Because I studied abroad after my sophomore year and went for to Finland and Sweden.
What? I did not know that.
It was an extended try-S. I'll say that.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we went to Finland, their big thing is the sauna.
Ooh,
and
the sauna.
I just told my kids this the other day because we went to IKEA over fall break, and there's a big picture in the Fisher's IKEA eating area, which is where we spend most of our time because the slushes and the cinnamon rolls and all that stuff. There's this big picture of a sauna in Sweden, and this particular one is on the wall because it has like Sweden's longest pier to this bathhouse. And you sit in there, and when I went, this is something families do, and they had, I don't know what your exact one you're referring to in Iceland is, but this was like you would sit, and families have them in their homes and they're at retreat centers and everywhere, but you could have a towel, but you couldn't even have jewelry or a bathing suit, like, because it would get so hot that it could burn you.
Wow.
And then you would run out, drop your towel, buck naked, and run out and jump in the freezing cold lake.
I'm sure that was a great try-S trip.
I know. Well, there was this one time, and I was telling my kids, trying to see what are they going to pick up on this. Yeah, you know, church, Christian University sponsored trip. But in this particular place, you know, when in Rome, it was a men on one side, women on the other side of the building. And the boys said, just knock on the wall when you guys are ready to go, so we'll know not to look.
Yeah, right. They're going to know to look.
And you can't stay in the water that long. I mean, it's so cold, but supposedly it's like so good for your body. So is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
I am not talking about that, but I would like to do that too.
Yeah.
So I'll just make it a whole.
So invigorating. Yeah.
A whole little upper. What would we call that? What would you call that area?
Oh, Scandinavian
trip. That's what I'm going to do. Okay. But no, in Iceland, they're hot springs.
Okay.
So you're outside in the freezing cold, but you get in the water. And it's like naturally heated from the volcanic activity or thermal activity underneath. So, you know.
Oh, that would be so cool.
The opposite of what you're talking about.
And then we'd have to go sleep under the northern lights. Have you seen those igloos?
I want to do that. Yes.
It's like I don't even know how it's possible, but that would be amazing.
Yeah, we need to do that.
Yeah.
Momnesia trip.
Yep. Momnesia live from the igloo.
And then the other thing I want to do, and maybe I need to hit up Marlene Scarborough for this, I want to learn how to play the piano.
It's never too late.
I know. Well, I did for a while take lessons from Joni Brandon, and I loved it. But then I got a job in Muncie, and it no longer fit into the schedule. Yeah. So I've got those beginner books. Yeah. And, you know, I've done a few little things. I mean, she said I was amazing. So,
Prodigy. Yeah. Did she throw that word around?
She did. She said like an old Mozart.
Okay.
I'm totally kidding. She said none of those things.
Okay.
I hope by now you've picked up on my sarcasm, amnesia friends. But that's something else I'd like to do. So I've
cool.
started the list, and I'm feeling a bit more positive about having a bucket list.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah. So what's yours?
Well,
What's your unique take on a bucket list?
It's
Miss
funny that you
Four?
said like 8s because you've kind of grabbed the bull by the horns and you've done it. And I think with 4s, a pretty common undercurrent is wanderlust. Like that desire. I mean, it can be bad because envy is the downfall, but it can be good because you're always thinking of a what if I did it this way or tried it this way. And for similar reasons, I feel like I've traveled a lot, or I've done kind of, I don't know if they're that outlandish, but tried different parts of my career, or tried different things just because it's like, well, somebody's done it. Why can't I try to do it? Or why, let's figure this out. Let's get creative with it. But one of the things I've been talking about lately that I don't know if this qualifies as bucket list, but I am big on like goals. So I'd kind of liken those things.
You got a strong 3. Wait.
Yeah. Yes, I do. So one of the things that Jeff and I have talked a lot about probably since before we got married and started revisiting this past summer when we went on vacation, just the two of us, was our long-term dream of owning a bed and breakfast.
Oh.
Yeah. And I can't remember if we've talked about this. Like it would kind of be bed and breakfast / retreat place to come. Like there would be music, there would be lots of time around the table. People could stay, and it's kind of I picture us, Lord willing, in our third act, like having people come and Jeff doing his favorite thing, which is like talking and listening to people and cooking them breakfast and baking and gardening, a little hottie bomb body out there, 70 years old. Okay, I'm running away with this.
Jeff, okay.
So I have brought it back on the table because we do this music camp with kids in the summer, and we do the podcast and we do lessons, and I'm thinking, how can we move forward? And maybe instead of this dream I've always had of living out in the country and having that space, right now living in a neighborhood is awesome. Like having the bus and having the kids next door. What if we just find that space without the living part and still can set up this goal of all those kind of bucket listish things that we want to do, but like start working towards carving out the place to start doing it in small ways now and just see where it grows, like this big art house. So we kind of have been bringing that bucket list thing back. I'd have to think more about, I always have the bucket list of like, buy that shirt, lose 10 pounds, drive a Lexus. That's not the thing. I don't feel like
those are bucket lists.
No, I don't either.
Like those are like New Year's resolutions.
Right. Yeah. True.
Or like dream boards.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
I think a bucket list is more
I
of
gotta
like,
do that before I die.
Exactly. Like big things.
I would say that the Northern Lights thing is that for me.
Yeah.
That is. So maybe I've just never used those semantics of bucket list. Yeah, I'm going to be thinking about this.
Based on my own semantics, then playing the piano should probably be more of like
resolution.
New Year's resolution, dream board, not bucket list.
Well, we can, we'll have to figure that out.
We can make our own rules.
Right, we can. You can't, you're not the boss of me.
Exactly.
What was the
list?
Girl Gone, what's the name of that podcast?
Girl Gone Boss.
Girl Gone Boss. You're your own boss, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, well, Julie, tell us who we've got on the show today.
Gladly, we have Sarah Westfall on the show with us today. And this is another person that we are both trying to fight over who knew who first. We're very competitive that way.
Yeah, it's weird.
I don't know. But we both have mutual connections to Sarah. Sarah is a writer based out of Fort Wayne. She's the mother of 5 boys. And she's going to tell us a little bit about her story and her career as a writer. Let's go get her.
Cool.
Well, Well, once again, Sarah and I are fighting over who knew who first. Or is it who knew whom first?
I don't know. I don't want to fight
You're
about
the
that.
editor. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on, Sarah.
Where you at, Sarah? Sarah with an H, the right way.
When you speak it's just totally different.
Well, we have Sarah Westfall in the house with us tonight, and we are thrilled to have her here. And Sarah and I both know Sarah from different contests, but both happened back in the early 2000s.
That's right. Yeah.
Right?
I think we met because I was doing music down at a church you were involved with, and you were, like you just mentioned, putting gaff tape down on the floors and setting up the whole stage every Sunday with your husband, Ben.
Yep.
So
Was this a church plant?
Yes. So it was like in an elementary school. So
yeah. Oh,
every
that's
week
so
was
much
the
work.
setting
Church
up the
plant
chairs.
life.
Yeah. I was the muscle behind
Yeah,
the
I
whole
can
course.
see that.
thing.
And the beauty.
Well,
Strong things
maybe
come in
more than.
Yes.
tiny packages. Yes. Okay. So
then-
yeah, that would have been like what, 04 or something like that.
Yeah,
05. Yeah.
down there.
Okay.
And Julie, what about
But
you?
I didn't meet her till 2010. So you got 5 years on me.
Okay.
And when I started working at AU, Sarah was a resident director in Morrison Hall. Shout out to all the Morrison Hall ladies.
That's right.
And we also would see each other on our daily drop-offs at Park Place Children's Center. Mary
Oh.
Kate and Cohen were in the same class. And right before they moved to Tennessee, our sons were also in the same class.
Okay. Well, you have multi-generational connections then.
Yes. So I guess I
So
win.
you've
Yeah.
trumped me. Okay.
Okay. Well, Sarah, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us your mom stats. Tell us about your family, your professional life. We'd love to hear more.
Yeah. I am through and through a boy mom. I've had 5 boys. 4 of them are at home with us now. 1 is with Jesus. But Cohen, Carter, Trace, Jameson, Mathis. If you're
That's a
wanting.
mouthful.
It is.
Wow.
Okay.
And my husband and I have been married for 15 years now.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Went fast. We live up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I am both a writer and a speaker and aspiring author.
Awesome.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit about your blog and your speaking. What do you have, like certain topics that you speak on specifically, or tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, my heart is really for helping women find God in those hard to find places.
Okay.
So I guess my tagline is finding God in the beautiful, the broken, and the in-between. I think that sometimes all of those can be hard to find places depending on our personality and temperaments, but trying to see God and see his grace and kind of redefining that just in daily life. So that's kind of my heart behind, and I talk a lot about just because of our family story with grief and loss and how that interplays with faith and following God.
Yeah. That's a rough intersection.
Yeah, not an always easy one to navigate.
Yeah.
I noticed recently you were speaking at Huntington College. Are you primarily speaking in that college circuit, or where are you speaking?
I do a little bit of colleges. I'm actually going to be at Anderson University here in February. So I love the college age because I worked with that for a really long time. It's kind of a good comfort, natural place. But I do a lot of like women's events too. So a lot of mops, a lot of young mamas.
Yeah.
And then I recently did one like a women's empowerment type event. So a lot of ladies.
That's cool.
And then
We love the
we
ladies.
do love the ladies.
Yeah.
They're good people.
And you also, I've seen on Facebook that your newsletter, is it called The Shelf?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to hear about the types of ways that what you're doing is reaching everybody. Like what medium does that look like?
Yeah. So I write regularly for my website. It's just sarahewestfall.com.
Okay.
Sarah with an H.
Yeah, Sarah with an H. Thank you. And that's only because I have actually done like 3 blogs. And I feel like as life changes, like the name of the blog and the direction kept changing.
Right,
so
right.
finally I'm like, I'm just going to name it my name and just let life keep happening.
I think I got on board with the Life in Blue
Yes.
podcast
Yes.
or blog.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like last year, I rebranded and redesigned that. And so I've been writing regularly there. I write for a couple different outside like third party things. So a lot of, but within the like Christian living space. And then I have a monthly newsletter that I do so that it goes out for like specialized content. Each month kind of has a theme. We've done, doubting God, what friendships look like in terms of like authentic friendships and community, wellness. So a lot of different things. It's kind of a combination of, when I think of my shelves at home, it's kind of just a hodgepodge of life.
Oh, yeah, right? Yeah.
And so like my kitchen shelves especially, it's like the bills and my kids' toys. And so it's a little bit of everything.
Okay.
So kind of the shelf is that little bit of everything that isn't necessarily on the blog all the time, but it's the extras and the behind the scenes stuff.
Okay.
And that is just once a month and it goes out. And a lot of times I do a lot of fun giveaways and freebies. I like to partner with women and local businesses, like women-run businesses, local businesses, and then also like social-oriented businesses, so like Mud Love or things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, just hearing about writing all of that content makes my heart start to beat a little faster. I have so much anxiety around writing. So when I find people who enjoy it and can like just flow with all this content and that's so engaging, I'm like in awe. I just think that's amazing. It drives me crazy.
I will say my husband, he runs a small business and entrepreneurial community, and he's like a one-man show, and so he has to do all of the emails and the social stuff, and I write most of that because he is just like, I can't. It does take a lot out of me, though, too. And there's like that element of writing is sometimes hard because you put it out there and a lot of your heart, it's like standing naked in front of a room, but then you can't really see people's reactions. You're like, well, I hope they like how I look.
Right.
You know?
I think that's exactly why I don't like it, is like that I know that it's putting a part of my soul out there in the universe to be judged, or my intellect, or whatever it is. And that is so scary.
Yeah, that can be. I'm looking forward to signing up for that. I just recently saw that was your newsletter name, and I thought, I got to get on that. So I've missed it up until now.
I'm signed up.
Yeah. Oh, you win.
She wins.
So
again.
I guess I win.
Okay.
Okay, so saraewestfall.com is where they can find your website and sign up for the newsletter. I know you also have a book that is hopefully in the works. Do we know anything about that, when that's going to be coming out?
No, I'm pursuing traditional publishing. And so a lot of times to get that foot in the door, you have to have a literary agent. And that process takes quite a while.
Do you want me to be your literary agent?
Are you qualified?
No.
So no.
Okay.
Sorry.
Right.
Love
well,
you. No.
Hey, I thought I'd try.
Thank you. And so that process can take a little bit. And then even after that, then your agent has to pitch it to a bunch of publishers. That would be a good fit. So it could be years, to be honest with you. So I'm just trying to settle in for the long haul, but had to write a book proposal, which if you're not in the industry, it's basically a business plan for your book. You have to write the book, and then you have to write a business plan for your book.
A book about your book.
Basically, yes. So just turned in all 50 pages of that about a week and a half ago. And so now we're just kind of waiting. But
And I know we talk about this with somebody else recently.
Yeah, a couple people.
Oh, I think it was
Jen was one.
Jen and then Molly Huffman.
yeah.
That you got to have lots of people on social media before they'll even look at you. So people go follow Sarah Westfall.
That's right. Yeah.
Follow her on all the social media channels. Help a sister out.
Right. Is that what you have found? Like there's pressure, like let's see what your community's like.
Yeah, it's definitely, they pay attention to your platform. I think that even more than social media, though, a lot of publishers are looking at your like email list, your database, because social media could go at any moment.
That's true.
Instagram could take off and be like deuces, and there goes all your people. You have no way to connect with them, and so they look at it. But it's also your email list and the people that you have, like in face-to-face influence as well. So there's a pressure with the social media thing, but I'm also trying to not let it drive me crazy because it
Sure.
can.
Yeah.
Oh, it totally can. I just told Sarah that today. It's like right when you feel like you're doing really good, then you like come across someone else who has like a bajillion followers and you're like, dang.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm
How does
finding
that
that
happen?
more and more on Instagram. I'm looking at somebody's cool room. I love looking, especially at, design type pages for fun. So I'm looking and I'll be like rabbit trailing and every person has like 500,000 followers. I'm like, I haven't heard of any of these people and they all have huge platforms.
Right.
It's at every corner you can find someone who seems to have more of a fan base. It's, I don't know. It feels a little overwhelming.
Yeah. I feel like I've been listening a lot to Dax Shepard lately.
Yes.
Armchair quarterback.
Saw him live.
Armchair expert. Sorry.
Yeah.
And, he's always talking about, that comparison game, especially in the Hollywood industry. That is so much like you're always competing with others. I don't think I could take that.
Yeah. I don't think I could either.
Yeah. It's hard. Definitely, I'm not at Hollywood status by far, but I think that even creeps in when you're trying to do anything or say anything, or for me, like social media is like doing the thing so that I can do the other thing.
Yeah.
And I'm an Enneagram 4, and so anything that ever feels really inauthentic to me just is like really icky. So anytime I have to feel like I'm turning into like this cartoon version of myself, I just like die a little inside.
Yeah.
We don't want you to die.
I don't want to either.
Yes.
And so it's just really important, like to me and to anyone who's trying to grow a social media following, just to be true to yourself and not in like a, be true to yourself kind of way, but just keep being yourself, your voice, and your audience, whoever that is, however big it is, will eventually find you.
Yeah.
And community will build on that as long as you're just being consistent. That's my theory with my 800
Those
followers.
are
That's a great
good
theory.
words of wisdom.
Yeah. Well, where do you want to take us first? Do you want to share a story to remember or one to forget?
Yeah, I'm going to start with one to remember. To be honest with you, walking in here today, I was a little bit like, man, both of my stories are kind of like not heavy, but just like I'm a boy mom and I have lots of funny stories about like nakedness and just, I've seen way too many penises.
Yeah.
Right.
Ever want? Can you say penises here?
Oh, you can say anything here.
I don't know. Do we have to put the explicit mark on there?
Right.
Then no.
I really hope I'm the first explicit conversation you
Exactly.
have.
Yeah.
Really. But yeah, so there's a lot of funny stories I could tell. And sometimes I'm like, oh man, I don't want to be like the Debbie Downer, but I, again, have to be authentic and be true to myself.
We want
so
that.
You're also the Enneagram 4.
Yeah.
Y'all love being
It comes
melancholy.
naturally to us. But that's what we can go follow your newsletter and everything else you're doing, hear the funny stories. So that's okay.
Yes.
Today we'll go deep.
I'm funny, darn it.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, story that I want to remember. I'm going to give a little bit of context going into it. So I've been a mama for 10 years now. Our oldest son, Cohen, was born in 2009. And when he was about 10 months old, they're super like personality and chubby and all the things. We're like, we're ready for the next one. And so we got pregnant pretty quickly again for our second. And halfway through that pregnancy, at our, the anatomy ultrasound that you do about halfway through, started to see some abnormalities with my amniotic fluid levels. We actually weren't able to find out whether it was a boy or a girl right away because it was really hard to kind of read the ultrasound. And so we had started the progress of several different doctor's appointments, had to end up seeing some specialists down in Indianapolis, and down there found out that our son had never developed kidneys.
Interesting.
And he was a son. We also found out we had another boy.
Okay.
And so it was just a random birth defect, no cause, no cure. Actually, since then, about 2 or 3 years after all of this, there has been studies and there have been some children who have lived
Oh,
since
wow.
then. So modern medicine, man, it's I'm grateful, but it's also a hard pill to swallow a little bit.
Yeah.
Because when they're born, they do an immediate kidney transplant, or how is
No,
that possible?
If you are born with one kidney, you can function relatively normally until they can, do whatever else they need to do medically. But without two, I think it's kind of like, and I haven't read all the studies, but now I think they're just trying to do some type of like dialysis type thing until the babies are old enough and developed enough to then have a kidney transplant.
Okay.
Wow.
So it's, very much in the works, but that didn't exist back in 2011. And so while our son Carter could live while he was in the womb, everything's seemingly normal, moving, kicking, that we knew, it was about 26 or 27 weeks by the time we got the final diagnosis, but we knew that he couldn't sustain life outside the womb. And so for 7 or 8 weeks, I had a moving, kicking baby boy inside of me, and knowing that our time with him was very limited. And there aren't even words to describe the devastation and the I just was walking around incredibly raw, and like for an Enneagram 4 to be raw, it was like it was just feelings spilling out all over the place. And during that season, though, during those weeks, I had a friend who lived across the street, another mama. She had 2 little kids of her own, and she had brought over like a kind of a care package of like bubble bath and aromatherapy type things. And so, which was so kind of her, and started developing this ritual where every evening, and it started just because I was so unbelievably stressed out.
I'm sure
that I needed to go and just take a bath and kind of just let as much as I could myself relax and linger. But what I found and what has become something that I want to remember is that while I laid there in the bath, and when you're super pregnant and you're in the bath, like that belly is like sticking up there, right? And so I would just like put my hands on my belly and just started talking to him. And because I didn't have amniotic fluid, like hardly at all, like his movements were so pronounced.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Like could see things so much more clearly through just that layer of flesh between us. And so he would move and I would talk to him and I would sing to him songs that I knew I wouldn't get to sing later on. And that just became like our time together. And it just became incredibly sacred space and a time that even though it was such a bitter, raw season on some level, it was also that's so sweet. And that became such a grace for when he was born and he did pass away, that, that's something that allowed me to have to carry forward and to have joy even in that intense grief. And so that's something that I mean, it's just really rewired so much in me, not just that bath experience, but just that whole bittersweet playing off of each other and going hand in hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
So how many weeks was he or were you when he was born?
I was 35 weeks, so he came early, which was actually a huge answer to prayer because I knew that he couldn't live, but I was like, I was really nervous about him being stillborn. For whatever reason in my mind, I was like, God, just give me some time with him. And actually, I was looking back this last year, I was looking back through a lot of old journals during that time and realized I had written out this prayer, and the prayer said, God, even if it's just for an hour, And when he was born, I was given like exactly an hour.
Wow.
And to go back and just to see God's attention to those details was just incredibly, it just reaffirmed his presence through all of that. I also asked, I was like, well, I wish I would have asked for longer, if he was paying attention.
Yeah,
sure.
Should have maybe been a little bit more generous.
That 10 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I can't imagine having to go through that. And knowing myself, I don't know if I would have had the forethought or the patience or the mindfulness or the grace that you had to think of that like as this is the time I get to spend with him.
And I know that a lot of your listeners, like not everyone comes from the same faith background, but like I honestly can say, because a lot of people will make comments to me sometimes of like, oh, that was so brave, or that took so much faith. But I'm becoming more and more convinced that faith is not something that we conjure up, but it is more and more something that God just gives us. And in that moment, that was something that God just knew I needed. And that was a great kindness and a grace from him. And I think that it also helps just on a practical level that I was able to, there was a book called I Will Carry You by Angie Smith, and she's gone on to write a bunch of other stuff. But her experience with her daughter mirrored ours in a lot of ways. And so, and I could only read her story in as much as what I had already experienced. Like I couldn't read about the death of her daughter until our son had already died because it was just too much. But a lot of reading through that helped me have kind of a framework of how to grieve well. And so that even in my writing now, it's a passion of mine to help people to lean into that grief because I think sometimes we're just really uncomfortable with being uncomfortable and with pain and the depths of it. But for whatever reason, there was just something inside of me that was just like, lean in, just let it come. I think actually I heard you, Sarah, on, it might have been episode 1 of your season 2 here. You said the phrase, stop shooting yourself. And that was a phrase actually Ben and I said often in terms of grief because there's not a prescription. There's not a calendar. And we had to learn, because if you think of it in that way and those shoulds fill your head, start shooting all over yourself, that guilt then complicates and gets piled on, and then shame on top of that. And so we very early on had to make a pact with each other of we're just going to let it come.
Right.
I realize he's not here to speak for himself, but how did he walk through that time?
Yeah, we walked through it very, very differently. A lot of it was us experiencing it side by side, and we had to learn to just say whatever it was that was on our minds, even if it did bring up guilty feelings.
Right.
But for him, he carried that very physically. He was very physically ill, and just carried it very differently. And he's naturally more kind of the strong, silent type, very even keeled, but he emotionally, he's before that, he probably had only cried twice in his life, like when his grandpa died and the day we got married. And during that season, it was just always right there under the surface.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was a lot of physical, and it was a lot of, I think we both handled it internally, but we processed it very differently. So I'm not going to answer for him any more than that.
Sure. Sure.
Yep.
Man. Can I ask you a couple more questions? And now it's Cohen is your oldest.
Yes.
And then Carter is the baby that passed. What was Carter like when you held him?
Yeah.
What did he look like?
he looked very much like his brothers. He actually, because of not having the amniotic fluid, he was a little bit squished in there. So he was like, had like a little bit of a pressed up against nose and an ear that was folded over. But because of that, it made him look really even more so like a little wrinkly old man. And and he had really dark hair. He was about 5 pounds, 5 weeks early. So I was like, oh my gosh, he would have still been a decent sized boy.
Yeah, he would.
And I never actually got to see his eyes because he never opened them. So I was actually just talking to my oldest son, Cohen, about that last night because they like to talk about their brother, Carter, and kind of guess about what he's like and whether he's still a baby in heaven or whether he's grown. Or what that's like. And so, but I like to tell them what I do know about their brother. And he actually, Carter, he had very underdeveloped lungs, but he was, I think, the only one of all 5 boys who made any noise.
Oh, really?
And I still, oh my gosh, I can close my eyes, and it's just like these little squeaks that still, they're just there. And
oh my goodness, that's so powerful.
Yeah. And so we just, even after he passed, we stayed with him for a while and just spent time memorizing him as much as we could. He was born in the middle of blizzard in Indiana. And so it was miraculous that all of our family got there, let alone our pastor just lived just down the street from the hospital that we were at. And so he even ran through the blizzard. He was a hot, sweaty mess when he got there.
Oh my goodness.
He was there before Carter passed away and helped us dedicate him. And it was just holy ground.
Wow.
It was just such a time of, God knew that I would need that moving forward, to know that he was so present and to give these gifts during that short amount of time.
How did you land on the name Carter?
Carter, the name Carter itself was just a name that we kind of always liked, but his middle name is Benjamin. So we named him after his daddy, which we kind of went back and forth about because Ben struggled for a little while with knowing that we were going to pass on his name to a son that we would have to bury and say goodbye to. But where we landed is that we wanted him and we wanted his brothers and we wanted everyone to know that just because his life was, in our perspective, short, that his life carried weight and that he was no less worthy of his daddy's name than any of our other boys. So,
can I ask, when you had that 1 hour and family was coming, I imagine that I would be very selfish and that I wouldn't want to share that time with anybody else. Was that your experience, or did you want to share that time?
When the time came, I honestly, once we got to the hospital and all of that, I knew that it was time. I was to a place where I was really going with my gut. I don't know what to expect. I didn't know what I would want. And my family were very willing to kind of just go with whatever we want. But for whatever reason, and maybe I'm kind of just putting some of this together right now, honestly. Sure. But I think because God gave me such sweet time with him when I was pregnant with him, that when he was born, I wanted other people to know him in their limited time with him, because I had already had sacred time with him. And not that I didn't, sometimes snatch him back, but I wanted him to know how loved he was. And that kid was probably loved more in an hour than some people are in a lifetime, which is really sad. But I didn't feel greedy with my time with him. When he did pass away, and I was spending time just kind of memorizing his face and his toes and just as much as I could of him. That was just me and Ben.
Mm-hmm.
And when we said our final goodbye, that was just me and Ben. And so we did have our time, but I just really wanted them to be a part of it because they were aching differently than us, but still intensely.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That is all so hard, but so precious. I don't know another word for it. It's just really beautiful. I'm amazed. I'm amazed at God for giving you the grace you talk about and the faith, and that you, I guess, were receptive to it as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really beautiful how you guys were able to walk through your worst nightmare.
Yeah, and I don't want to sugarcoat it on any level.
Sure.
Because there were, especially after he passed away, like that really was my like darkest
Sure.
probably time. And I even, when you come home from the hospital and the doctor gives you, mild narcotics because you've just had a baby, that I actually had to give those to Ben and say, you have to get rid of these, hide them, because I don't want to take them for my physical pain. I want to take them because they make me sleepy and I want to escape and I want to just numb out for a little while. And so, so it's not that there weren't those moments.
Yeah.
But one thing that kept me from going down those paths farther than they did was that I had seen God work in Carter's short life so much that I did not want to dishonor or disrespect that or anything that, like, my son's legacy, essentially, by me doing something stupid. And letting it get shrouded over and just letting the darkness take over.
Because it would be easy to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and understandable.
Completely
even.
understandable.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know if you will hit on this at all, but, I'm also like, somehow you decided in some way, shape, or form that you were willing to have 3 more kids.
Yeah.
So what was the timeline like before you're like open to that in some way? Or were you even open to it? Or were they all just like, oh, I guess that happened? Can I ask that?
No, we always wanted to have more
Yeah.
than one. And so it was probably 6 months out that both my husband and I got tattoos with Carter's initials and then a verse from Psalms that says his works are wonderful. And something, it's like after we got marked by that, there was a little bit of freedom that we felt in trying like to turn the page. And it was also about that time that I went to work at Anderson, and it just felt like a new chapter a little bit. And so it was probably, and we still wanted, like Ben and I we both are from families of 4 kids, which we never thought we would be a family with that many kids, but we just knew more than one at least.
Right. Those families are so weird.
Yeah, I know. All those kids, man. Wild. And so we also wanted our kids to be fairly close in age, as much as what's ever in your control. Right. And so we started trying again that same fall. So Carter died in February, and it was probably about September that we started trying again. And there was a lot of anxiety.
I'm sure.
Even though rationally I knew the odds of it reoccurring were very, very, very slim, but you couldn't tell my emotions that.
Oh, sure.
And so really up until that anatomy ultrasound, I was incredibly anxious. And, that we went into that ultrasound and I was like, I don't care about gender. You go look for his kidneys right now.
Yeah.
Please.
Right.
And so, and everything was fine. We've not had any abnormalities or birth defects since then. So.
Wow. So now what are the other 3 children's names?
Trace, he was the one born right after Carter.
Okay.
And then we had a little bit of a gap, thought we were going to adopt, and then had 2 surprises.
Okay.
2 surprises.
Yes, I know how it happens.
Yes.
Yes, sometimes certain swimmers beat certain odds.
Right.
Twice.
Gotcha.
And so, yeah, we were actually in the process of adopting and then got pregnant for one of our middles, Jameson. And then when I was still nursing and Jameson was just 7 months old, found out we were pregnant then for our last one, Mathis.
Okay.
So
I love all of their names.
thank you. I do too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for giving us your story. I mean, for sharing that with us. That is a sacred space to be in with you, and you don't have to share it with us. So we appreciate you being willing to share that with us.
Absolutely.
Now, we're going to head to another story, though. Tell us the one that you want to forget.
Yeah. I struggled with picking a story that I'd want to forget only because I feel like God takes everything and makes it beautiful in its time. And so
Right.
I was like, I wasn't so much like there's nothing that my kids have ever done that I'm like, oh, I wish I could forget that.
Right.
That has ever happened. But it was more so I landed on a story that it was more so that I wish that I would have handled things differently.
We've had a lot of those,
Yes.
which is cool because I think it takes a level of, I don't know, self-actualization to be like, there are redemptive parts of anything. And that's good that you have that. So yeah, a lot of people have felt that way.
Yeah. And so I told the first story because it kind of provides some more context for this one. Our oldest son, Cohen, was about 17 months old when his brother died.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was really young, very formative age, and was in a very grief-filled home. And so, being a mom to him was helped me like keep moving forward and get out of bed and doing all those things. But it definitely still affected him long term, followed by a couple of moves due to career. And so I think that by the time he was about 5, and at that time I was, we were down in Tennessee, and I was working in housing and residential life at Middle Tennessee State. We lived on campus, we had 2 boys at that time. Trace was 1, and Cohen was
6,
4 when we moved down there.
I can't do math.
Close.
Sorry.
That's okay. Me neither. And so we had about a year that I was working full time, and he was, in childcare. And just really struggling emotionally. And just so you know, last night before I came here, I talked to him and was telling him about what we were going to talk about.
Sure.
And kind of got permission to tell the story.
Yeah.
And he was like, Mom, I don't even remember that.
Right.
Like, I don't care what you say. So
Yeah.
I'm like, all right. Because it's really important to me not to tell my children stories.
Yeah.
But he had a lot of anger, because I think that a lot of times when we're hurt and don't know how else to express it, it comes out in anger a lot. And I had just decided to be a stay-at-home mom with him, and was thinking I'm going to kind of really invest some good time with him before he goes to kindergarten next year. And so stepped away from my full-time job and started working from home, which was hard in and of itself, because I really did enjoy my work. I enjoyed the college students I worked with and where I was working. But I knew that it was the right choice, even though I will say my husband, because I, at that point, was not the most patient person. And so, when I was like, Ben, I really think this is what I need to be doing, he was like, are you sure you're cut out for this?
Right.
And I'm like, no, I'm not sure, but this is what we have to do.
Well, at that point in time, you're a young mom and you have no sleep.
Yeah.
So
And
nobody has patience at that time.
Right.
and I had even less because part of my job was crisis response and being on call on a state campus. And so I was doing a lot of like middle of the night, fire things had been pulled or a student was streaking across campus because he was
intoxicated,
out of his mind. And so
that's a lot of triggers for no sleep.
yes.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I was probably very impatient as a mama. But so when we transitioned home, I was pretty tired from work. And he went through a season in which he'd always struggled with change in general. But I think that it was like boundary testing to the limits, and that he would act out and do something, and I would get down to talk to him, and he would literally slap me across the face.
Yeah.
And I just remember, like, not only did it physically hurt because he was so incredibly angry, like I just did not know what to do.
Right.
I did not know how like it stirred up some anger in myself. It shocked me, especially the first time it happened. And so, looking back on that, I don't think I handled everything well. It's really just been in the last year or two where Ben and I have looked at him and said, oh, he's not responding in anger quite so much. So it's been a really long, slow process of kind of, I almost feel like I've had to prove to him that I love you. I'm going to stay, and that there's nothing you can do to test that. And he's also a very empathetic kid. So I think he just soaked in so much of the emotion of our home when he was really little, but didn't have words. And so the last 5 years of it was actually when we watched the movie, what's the one with the emotions? Disney.
With joy and anger.
Inside Out? No.
Inside Out.
Yes.
Okay.
So, gosh, it was probably when he was about 7 or something. We finally watched that. And for whatever reason, that became a turning point because he found words.
Oh, wow.
Words to express and visualization of these emotions that he was having. And finally able to be like, I am angry.
Right. Yeah.
And so, but like looking back, I kind of wish I could forget some of that because honestly, I had so much just generalized anger from our loss that I thought it just spilled out like over onto him. And it probably did. And so I carried a lot of guilt in that season for feeling that I had done that to him.
Yeah.
That I created this little angry human. But so I know I didn't do a lot of things well, but then there's also grace in that I didn't know how to do anything better.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So.
It's cool to think perhaps when you talked about grace and that it wasn't, you said with faith, it maybe isn't just something we conjure up, but something that's given, or grace, it's something that God, lavished grace upon you to be able to handle. It's interesting to think that perhaps we could, what would the words be? Perhaps we could extrapolate on that to say, and maybe he was able to do that for Cohen also, what some other kid at that age may not be able to have the capabilities or faculties to endure. God knew what his story would be and that he would be in a family and lose a brother, and maybe gave him that same type of thing he gave you and Ben.
Right. Yeah, I'm a firm believer that God wants to redeem. He is a God who is working toward redemption. And it's not, like a lot of times when I think, well, a lot of times people's responses to this type of really hard stuff is, oh, well, God, God doesn't do anything without a reason.
Right.
Or,
He'll never give you more than you could handle.
Right. And so it's not like a silver lining, like pie in the sky thing, but like God wants to take what is shattered and pick up those pieces and create something new out of it. He does not want to leave us broken. I think sometimes he uses brokenness for his glory and goodness, and that's grace. But I don't think that he wants to leave us there.
Right.
And he doesn't want to leave. And so much in parenting, I remind myself, God loves them more. I have to like preach that to myself constantly, because when I feel like I have completely failed them, that I have to just remember that God loves them more, and he is pursuing them more and better than I ever could.
Yeah. And certainly what you're talking about, whether any of us have had loss or not, I completely identify with the feeling of I've messed up, and their, ways that are manifesting as children messing up are my fault, and feeling the guilt and shame. And I can think pretty specifically of seasons of postpartum depression where I felt incapable of dealing with their crying, or there was certain stimuli, that'd be the word, stimuli, where I just felt absolutely inept at handling it, and felt that kind of anger, and still to this day, a decade later, think, is some of that X, Y, or Z that they're doing because I wasn't there in the way I should have been, or they picked up this emotion. And so that feeling, I think, probably is universal to parenthood.
Yeah. And it's really easy to, along with the anger, because so much, kids are unpredictable, but when they're carrying extra stuff that maybe every other kids in their class may not carry, there's a lot more acting out that happens. And I think that in addition to my anger, I also had this pride I had to get over of like, of how I thought that reflected on me.
Right.
And how, and I think I'm still trying to get over that. I'm not sure I'm done with that particular lesson. But had to see my kid for who he was, and not let how he was behaving in that moment reflect how I defined him or how I even treated him. And that he, all of my boys, I was just telling somebody before I came in here, I'm like, how did I get 4 boys with such 4 strong, distinct personalities? And so it's like, it's always someone, okay? And sometimes it's really easy to allow their behaviors, especially out in public, to think that that's a reflection either on me or their future.
Right. Yeah.
That is so true.
Yeah. I saw this article today, kind of on my iPhone, Apple News, and it's like I started there and kind of rabbit trailed. So maybe it wasn't one of the top stories, but it was about a boy who stood alone at a See You at the Pole event.
Yes,
did you see that?
I did see
I feel like I rabbit trailed from the news. I could be mistaken on that part, but
Facebook News,
right? Oh boy. And I just put the caveat that I don't mean any offense to this family or mean to pick apart this awesome thing, because I do think it's super cool that what had happened was the boy went to the See You at the Pole and he wanted to pray and no one came, and he continued to stay there. And there was a picture, and the mother later saw this picture, and so many people had commended him for standing for what he believed in. And even people that were not people of faith had commended him. And she, of course, was very proud, as she should be. But she made a comment in there about how she had always wondered if she had been enough or done enough. And this was such an affirmation to her that she had. And the reason I found it interesting is because of what we're talking about. If we can't blame ourselves, then we also have to know, I have 5 kids. It's a big family like you. And sometimes they do crappy stuff and sometimes they do awesome stuff. And I have to be careful about on the awesome stuff, patting myself on the back either. So I don't mean to vilify that mom, but I thought, well, that's interesting that we like, how much can we take credit for that?
Right. Well, I think the same is true. Like we were talking about earlier with faith. If we think that faith is something that we can completely conjure up, well, then the consequences of that faith then are all of us. And
right.
Whereas it's like, no, that comes from an outside source, and therefore it's all through him. Then that's not something that we, if things don't go as well,
right,
then we're not like, oh, we did not have enough faith.
That's true. Yeah,
have enough whatever.
Yeah, that's freeing. Also, you can't take credit for the amount you have or don't have. So on a lighter note, may I ask where your tattoo is? Is it a tramp stamp?
Yes. Ben's face right on my... No, okay, so I actually have 2 tattoos.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful.
This one is Carter's initials in Hebrew. It's on my left wrist.
Okay.
And then I actually just got this one. It's I'm going to say it. I'm going to butcher it because it's in a different language, but it's El Roy or El Rahi or something.
Is that Cain?
No, it means the God who sees me.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's from Genesis 16, where Hagar is alone in the desert.
Yeah.
And God comes to her.
Okay.
And she names him El Roy, you are the God who sees me.
Okay. Isn't that... someone else, I want to say it was Kimberly Majeski on her episode, talked about that passage. She was saying, because it's the first time in the Bible where
God is named by woman.
Yes. Yeah. I also thought of another podcast moment just a couple minutes ago, Christina Smith's episode. I don't know if you ever heard that one, but there are parts of her story where she really felt like that first year after Zoe had passed and she had lost Micah as well, that her boys were kind of born into this family where they didn't get the best version of her. And there were a lot of similarities to my ears of what you were saying about the grief that he had to endure. And what did he, as far as Cohen goes, like what kind of emotion did he see or what empathy did he feel? So that is heavy, but we are gifted that you would share it with us. Yeah. You could have picked a funny story, and we'll go look for those. But this was, like you said, like totally sacred space. Yeah.
Well, we're going to end on a little bit of a lighter note, as usual, with the mom seat. We're going to read off 2 answers. You get to pick the one that is closest to your experience. And there is debate amongst the Momnesia crew if you can pick more than one.
I say, and no disclaimers or anything like that?
I am of the no disclaimer. Sarah, your fellow 4 will say, you answer however you want. You're like unique. You're special.
It's not that I'm a rule breaker. It's just that they don't apply to me.
Yes. I am the exception.
Yes.
So here we go with the mom seat.
All right.
Disposable or cloth?
Disposable.
Bottle or breast?
Both.
Right from the get-go. Pinterest mom or Amazon Prime mom?
Amazon Prime.
Jeans or yoga pants?
Yoga pants.
Top knot or ponytail?
Top knot.
Home birth or hospital?
Oh, hospital.
Chore chart or managing chaos?
Oh, managing chaos.
Gender reveal or find out when it pops out?
Both.
Instagram or Facebook?
Instagram.
Homemade or store-bought?
Store-bought.
Lullabies or sound machine?
Sound machine.
5 servings of veggies per day or per month?
Month.
President of the PTA or I'll send in some goldfish?
Goldfish.
Bubble bath and a good book or girls' night out?
Bubble bath.
Weekly meal plan or McDonald's drive-thru?
Meal plan.
Homeschool or go to school?
Go to school.
In your home, are you freebird or robed up?
Robed up, but I don't want to be. But I have all boys.
Right.
So
you are freebird in spirit.
Yes.
Right.
Favorite parenting resource?
Oh, goodness. right now is Paul David Tripp's book, Parenting, 14 Gospel Principles, something for your family.
Okay. Favorite place to buy kids' clothes?
Once Upon a Child.
And you have completed the mom seat. Yay! Well, we're going to have to get that book from you again. We'll link that in the show notes.
Yeah. Okay, I had to look this up. ROI is French for king.
Is it really?
Yeah. So that's why I was thinking that doesn't mean
So
king.
you weren't completely
so it has
wrong.
like, yeah, I wasn't completely wrong. I got to make sure to say that. It has like, that's a cool meaning too.
Yeah. I'm going to have to like chew on that a little
Right.
bit.
Yeah.
And that's Hebrew, though, what you have.
Yeah.
Yes.
How do you say it?
Oh,
Rohi.
it's like El Rahi.
El Rahi.
Yeah, I need to learn to
Yeah.
say it better.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for spending time with us. We're so grateful for your stories and that you would share them with us and with our Momnesia community. And we will be following you on all the social media channels and cheering you on as you go for this book proposal. We want your book published.
Yes.
Come on, people.
Yep. Everyone go find all of her handles and pages and support her and the work she's doing.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, we hope you will come back next week on the Momnesia podcast, where we're going to share more stories before Momnesia sets in and we forget it all. Have a great week.
Bye-bye. Today's episode of Momnesia was recorded at Grace Church in Noblesville, Indiana, with original music by Phil Larson. Make sure to check out Grace's podcast Between Sundays and Phil's music on Spotify.